Hey guys, DMS here. Today I have for you the Focal Celestee closeback, and I'm going to compare it to the Aeon Noire. Let's check it out. Now do me a favor, if you want to see more videos like this, click that subscribe button down below. If you want to support the channel and ask me questions directly, you can on the Telegram chat, or you can get active in the community on Hi-Fi Guides. The Focal Celestee was sent to me by Andrew over at the Headphone Show. Give him a shout, check out his channel, I'll have it linked in the video description. Thank you, Andrew, for sending over the Celestee for me to review. Now, the Aeon Noire here I recently put out a video on. If you haven't already seen it, I'd recommend checking that out before you see this video, just so you have some background on this headphone. But let's get into talking about the Focal Celestee. Now, Focal has a lot of headphones in their lineup and a number of closebacks, but this is right around $1,000, so it's not super crazy compared to the price of many other Focals. The construction is interesting. We have this metal body with a bit of a bluish tone to it, and these brass-colored trims and pieces all around. And then this is actually the leather all underneath this little grid pattern. It's very interesting. And then we have a vent here. This feels basically like the same leather on the pads that is on the headband. Actually, plenty of padding all around. Even though there's no suspension strap, this is certainly thick enough to be comfortable, which is nice. The pads are a hybrid pad, so this is a fabric on the inside with leather right here and leather on the outside. So we're looking at multiple materials in the pads, and then you can see the dynamic driver right in here, which is an angled dynamic driver. This aluminum magnesium headphone is pretty light. It's pretty comfortable. It's really hard to complain about how it fits. Like the Focal LX, I found it to be reasonably easy to wear for long periods of time. Though not quite as comfortable as the Aeon Noire, I would still say that they are certainly competitive with one another on comfort. The Aeon Noire is probably one of the most comfortable headphones I've ever worn, but like I said, this does still compete in comfort. And between the two on build, the Celestee definitely wins. The Celestee is just a better built headphone than the Aeon Noire. The included cable is a tip sleeve, 3.5mm on either side, and then a 3.5mm stereo with a screw-on 1/4-inch adapter. It's not a very long cable, but certainly long enough to plug up to a DAC amp on your desk, a laptop, or whatever else you might want to plug into. The connections feel fine. The cable itself doesn't have much weight to it, though it does have a bit of memory, so while the cable's plugged in, it does always seem to want to do things like this. Depending on how you have it laying, it never seems to want to lay flat. It always has some level of memory to the cable. And the case is like just about every other Focal. Big zippered case, very protective, with a nice little spot to tuck in a DAP, your cable, or whatever else you might be carrying. Not particularly space efficient because the headphones do not fold. The case is pretty big, but it still works pretty well as a portable, given how it is very easy to drive and pretty isolating. Though, once again, not quite as isolating as the Noire, but also easier to drive than the Noire. See, the Celestee here, I can power off of my laptop if I need to. The Noire, I definitely have to have a dedicated amplifier, and the Celestee benefits from an amp, but it's not entirely necessary power-wise. If anything, I think that means that the Celestee is more benefiting from having a quality DAC than it is from the power of an amplifier. So let's talk about sound. This reminds me a lot of the AKG K361 in many good ways. It sounds a lot like a K361 with a lot more resolution and a little bit more shouty at times, maybe a hair less sub bass. And at first that sounds kind of confusing, but think about it like this. I have said in my AKG K361 video that I wish there was a higher end version of that headphone. And while this isn't exactly that, it is very, very reminiscent of what I would want in a nicer version of that same headphone. It is better built, it is more comfortable, and retains an extremely similar sound signature. That's because that headphone and this headphone are both tuned pretty close to the Harman target, though a little bit less so in the bass, which I personally am in favor of. I don't want as much bass as the Harman target normally offers, though there are some exceptions like like the Noir here. The sub bass is okay, regular bass is reasonably impactful, present. There is some extra presence in like the 1 to 200 hertz region, like a little bit of a bump there. Mid-range is pretty flat for the most part, and it gets a little bit shouty in the between 1 and 3 kilohertz region. I feel like there's just a little bit of an elevation there. The forwardness isn't bad. It does help with clarity on vocals, but it can be a bit more shouty than I would prefer. I think this headphone's biggest weakness is its soundstage. This is about as narrow gets. Nothing is outside of your head, nothing is really in your head, it just sounds like something is coming from a small driver right next to your ear on both sides, which it is, but this headphone is not very good at creating the auditory illusion of soundstage or imaging or depth, but it is very good at having a pretty neutral overall sound and having lots of clarity and detail. If you like things like the 6XX, you probably won't mind this, but I do feel as though this is still more narrow than a 6XX. Let's compare the sound signature of this to the Noir, which I gave a lot of praise to. While the Noir is a bit V-shaped, it's still a very good headphone. And now we're looking at dynamic and planar, two headphones that lean in the direction of the Harman Target, but they're close enough in price that if you were looking at the Noir, you might consider the Celestee and vice versa. Sub bass is just better on the Noir. It is a bit more elevated, but you just have that incredibly textured planar bass. All of the evaluation in this specific comparison is with the white damping added to the Noir. And if you want to know what it's like with and without this white damping, like I said, check out my Aeon Noire video. Reviewing it, I talk about that specific damping and why I'm using it. The damping does hurt dynamics just a little bit, and dynamics are an area where I would say the Celestee has an advantage over the Noir even without the damping inserted, because usually focal headphones like this, like the Alex, the Utopia, the Clear, have very good dynamics. And the dynamics don't quite hold up in the Aeon Noire to that. The 1 to 200 hertz bump that's in the Celestee doesn't seem to be present in the Noir, and the mid-range is a little bit more recessed in comparison to the Celestee. The Celestee is a bit more of a mid-range to neutral focused headphone, whereas the Noir is a bit more V-shaped. This headphone has more powerful, more extended bass, more extended and slightly more elevated treble, and a lot more air on top. In terms of detail, I feel like these headphones are on a similar playing field. I feel like they do compete with each other very closely in that aspect, but the dynamics of the Celestee do give it a bit of an edge. And then on the other hand, when we move to soundstage, the Noir has a huge, huge advantage. So let's break it down really quick. Who are these headphones for? If you had to pick between both of them, because both of these are excellent headphones. So Celestee, easier to power, a bit more neutral leaning, very thin soundstage, not much space at all, and great dynamics. The Noir, very powerful bass and treble, lots of extension on both ends. Certainly more comfortable, though maybe not as well built. Easier to take around places since it is foldable, but not as easy to power, and vastly superior in comparison to the Celestee on soundstage. If you're picking between these two headphones, those are the main pros and cons I would consider. And I feel like even though they're both excellent headphones, this should make it a lot more clear-cut as to which one is right for you. Since I already have the K361 and I like it a lot, I feel like between the two, I would probably end up with the Noir simply because I already have a headphone with this sound signature. And while I'm very glad this exists on the market, I don't feel a need for it personally. But in my collection, I also value a bit of diversity between headphones because I have so many different things I need to test, and it's nice having different things as different benchmarks. The K361 is already a good benchmark for closed back neutrality for me, and I feel like for a lot of people, this would still be a great headphone. But for me, I think that the Noir is probably the one. I would like to see a headphone like this in a slightly cheaper price point, something tuned like the K361 in maybe the $500 range, maybe with a high impedance dynamic driver, because that would be fantastic. But for now, it looks like headphones in the sub $1,000 range are pretty great. I'm going to be adding the Focal Celestee to my list, and actually I'm doing a comparison between the Celestee and the Alesia. That should probably be coming out in a week and a half, something like that. And a review of the Focal Alesia, in case you are wondering between those two. And right after this video, since I've been reviewing a lot of good closed back headphones, we're going to talk about one that sucks. I'm looking at it right now. We'll get to that in the next one. So guys, that's all I have for you today. If you like this video, please leave a like down below, a comment letting me know what you want to see in the future. If you want to get active in the community, you can at forum.hifiguides.com. And as always, don't forget to stick around and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Till next one, guys. Peace.